What's up guys, and welcome to my channel. My name is Chalo the Fashion Fairy. If you want to know how I made this top, definitely keep watching. See you in my tutorial.
Every single day I'm gonna make something great. That's my way. Every single day I'm gonna make something great.
Welcome to part 2 of this tutorial. Here I'll be showing you how I used my pattern pieces to cut out my fabric. So I added one each at that very end there. I usually like to do this because I wouldn't want to lose any fabric while joining the two pieces. So whatever excess I may have at the end of the day, I'm just going to trim that off. This is highly optional. I noticed I added too much, so you may want to add just ½ inch and you cut it off at the end of the day. If you've not watched my tutorial on how I made these pattern pieces, please click on the link on the screen and it will refer you to my tutorial. You can watch it before you go ahead with this one. So this is me measuring to make sure I have the same length with this. So I added 1 inch so that I'll be able to add my boning without any problem. So whatever excess I may have after joining this, I'm going to trim that off. So notice that the back pattern has this shape right here, which I showed you while I was making the pattern, that if you want to leave it your own like this, you may leave it, but I just usually don't like to do this. I usually like to give it this curve. So I'm just showing you how I did it. I added ½ inch following the curve right there, and I'm just going to cut that off. So you just add ½ inch at that point. Please, if you've not watched my previous tutorial, go ahead and watch that before you continue with this one. So these are what I have now. I've gone ahead to give it that beautiful shape, that blouse shape, and I've extended my side pieces by 2 inches, and I also recreated my armhole line, and I also notched various points at which I will be joining these pieces. So this is what I have so far. I notched the top part because usually when you remove the patterns, it will be so confusing. So I like to notch the top part, so I will make sure that I'm joining it the right way. You may want to do this as well. So these are what the patterns I'll be working with, and I already went ahead to use interfacing on it. I use fusible interfacing, paper stay, and air stay as well on the fabric. So this is what I have so far, and I'll go ahead and pad this. So I'll be using air stay to pad my blouse, and I'm just going to follow the shape of my blouse, making sure I don't allow it enter into my, especially the neck area, enter into my allowance that I've kept to turn my lining. So I'll go ahead and do this, and I'll come back and I'll show you what I have so far. Don't forget to notch your back pieces as well, and this is very important, guys. If you don't do this, you may turn it upside down, especially if you don't have a pattern to follow on your Ankara. But this made it easy for me as well, because I could have just followed the pattern on it, but you may want to notch it. Do that. Okay, I've gone ahead to pad my pieces, making sure it did not enter, especially the neck area. So I padded the lining as well, used the pieces that I got from padding my fabric, and I used it on my bust area. So I'm just going to take my time in aligning this part, just to make sure I match all the notches, and this will help you have a proper fitting. So I've gone ahead, you can see that the bust area is prominent. I've gone ahead to do this, and it looks beautiful. So now this is what we'll be needing for the second batch. If you've not watched my video on how to use boning, please go back to my corset making tutorial. I showed in detail how to add boning to your fabric or to your patterns. Okay, so these are what you will be needing for this. I decided to use a plain fabric for the sides so that it will come out more beautifully, but you can use the same if you wish. So this is what you'll be doing. You'll be folding in the allowance that you left, the 1 inch allowance that you left, and you'll be using your boning to insert it. So you're going to create a channel first, and then your boning is just going to run through the channel. So for the center piece, make sure you open it as well. You can fold it to the left or to the right, it's up to you, but I'll be folding it towards my side seam because it always looks better that way. And I'll run a line on the front part, making sure I have 1/2 inch of casing. So I've gone ahead to do this off camera, and this is what I have. I've gone ahead to insert the boning. Remember that if you've not watched my corset making tutorial, please go back and watch in detail how I created this. So this is what I have at the end of the day, and it looks beautiful already. I did not put that on my lining at all. I just went ahead to fold it to one side, just like I did for my fabric, just that I did not pass any boning through the channel. So I'm just going to go ahead and start putting my pieces together. I left an allowance of 1.5 inches, so that's exactly what I'll be taking off at this point. And whatever I do to my fabric, I'm going to do to my lining as well. So I've gone ahead to put them together, and this is what we have for now. So the next step is for us to attach our zipper. Yeah, we're making progress. So this is what we have so far. Looks beautiful, doesn't it? So there are two ways to do this. You can either turn in the whole sides, leaving just the armhole, and then you join the zipper, but I decided to add the zipper first to my fabric. So I've already gone ahead to add the zipper to my fabric, just showing you what I did. I measured 1/2 inch from the hemline, and I placed the end of my zip to that. So I'm just going to pin that all the way up, making sure I am working with the exact allowance I left for my zipper. So I left 1 inch for my zipper, so I'm just placing it on my 1 inch mark, which I already made off camera. Please make sure you make this mark so that you follow a straight line. So I'm just going to take this all the way up, just pin, and then we're just going to use the machine quickly to attach that. So I already did that off camera, and this is what I have so far. Yeah, so this is the 1/2 inch I left there. I'm just going to use it to turn in the lining. So the next thing is placing the right side of the fabric to the right side of the lining. I'm just going to go all the way from the zipper area, making sure you align both the lining and your fabric. You pin that and you run a stitch, making sure you are not getting the zipper stuck in your sewing line. So make sure you follow the 1 inch mark all the way, and whatever allowance you may have left, you're just going to go all the way and seal it in, leaving just the armhole area so that you can turn it inside out from there. So I've gone ahead to do that, and I'm just going to cut off all these edges. I do this because it helps the edges stand out more. So having done with this part, I'm just going to carefully place the center pieces together, and I'm going to run a stitch line across using my 1/2 inch sewing allowance, which I added to the fabric. Now that we are done with this, I'm just going to go ahead and turn this inside out. So this is the method I use to conceal all my sewing allowances, and the inside always looks so professional. So I'm just going to use the scissors. It can be anything really, and if you're not careful, the scissors is going to make a hole. So use whatever you feel you're comfortable with, and you're just going to dig in and make sure those sides, those pointy points are all pointy. I'm rhyming. Okay, so this is what I usually do to make sure they are all the edges are very sharp. So I've ironed it, and this is what I have so far. And you remember the style we're working with, it has side flare. So how to do this is to measure 3 inches from that line, exactly 3 inches, and we're just going to make a mark there. So 3 inches on both sides, and then I'm just going to measure 6 inches at this point, and I'm going to use a lazy curve to connect it to that point. So whatever you do to one side, you're equally going to do the same to the other side. Please make sure before you cut it off that all the sides are properly aligned and sitting pretty, so that you don't cut one side is not longer than the other one. So now that we've gotten that sorted, I'm just going to go ahead and cut off this part. Please note that the length of this is actually up to you. If you want yours longer or shorter, this is the time to make that decision, guys, before you cut it. So I'm just going to use the one I already cut off to place it on the other side, just to make sure I'm cutting exactly the same thing, making sure that the sides are sitting well. Please, it's very important to do this. You would want to use your pins to secure this, to make sure that the sides are properly aligned. If not, it's not going to come out pretty, guys. So I'm taking my time right here, and I'm just placing it, making sure they are equal. So now that I'm comfortable with it, I'm just going to place this on this side and make a mark using my chalk to trace that out, and I'll just go ahead to cut that side off as well. Cut, cut, cut. So the next thing for us to do is to measure whatever we have here. So we're just going to go ahead and measure it. So here what we have so far is 7.5 inches. So I left about 1 inch at this point before I measured the 7.5 inches. Remember, we're supposed to cut a peplum and attach to that. So the 7.5 inches would be the length of the peplum, and I'll be using about 1/2 inch for the So this is the fabric I decided to use. I discarded the black because it didn't really bring out the color, so I'm using this instead. So I folded this way once, and I folded it lengthwise. So widthwise first and then lengthwise, and you make it into a triangle. Please be advised that I decided to use a full peplum for my sides. If you don't want the peplum as full as mine, you may go ahead to cut a 180-degree flare. So remember what we measured, 7.5 at this point, and then we left about 1 inch there. So here I want you to measure about 1/4 to 1/2 inch, and then I want you to measure 7.5 inches plus 1/2 inch of allowance, which has made it 8 inches. So that's what I'm marking all the way. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect all these points together and quickly cut this out. So you'll be needing exactly 4 pieces of this. So you actually need 2, but the 2 others will be the lining. So we'll quickly cut this out and then cut out 3 more. So I've gone ahead to do that, and this is what I also want you to do to open up the sides for the 4 of them. Remember, I said one part will be for the lining and the other one will be the main fabric. So you may want to actually add maybe paper stay or air stay to this, just to give it a little bit of thickness. I ended up using paper stay for both the lining. So I'm just going to run my 1/2 inch all the way to that point and do the same. So what I did here was I went ahead to run a stitch line across all these points to make sure they don't keep moving while I'm attaching it. So you want to run a stitch line on the fabric and a stitch line on the peplum as well. So I'm attaching the peplum to the fabric. I'm using pins first. Make sure you pin from both sides so that whatever excess you may have, you can make a pleat right there in the middle. So you pin from one side and then you get it done. So I've already gone ahead to stitch this together, and this is what I have so far. This is how the inside looks like. You can see it's very neat. So the next thing is for us to do our sleeve. So here we're going to quickly draft our sleeve. So usually if you're doing your off shoulder pattern, whatever you remove, like you remove 5 inches on the pattern, you're supposed to draft 5 inches as well and add back as your sleeve. But because we want to gather this, I marked 9 inches at this point so that we'll have enough to gather to our sleeve. So I've gone ahead to cut our strap, and I cut exactly 10 inches. So the length is 10 inches. Sorry, the width now is 10 inches and the length is 2.5 inches. So this is what I have so far. You can see that on fold we have 5 inches. So we're just going to take off the height of the band from this pattern. So I'm just going ahead to measure the height of this band. So I haven't sorted that out. I'm just going to grab my top and place it on the pattern and trace it off. So see what I did. This is the band height. I just placed my armhole on this from the very edge and I traced it out. So at this point I'm just going to add 1/2 inch of sewing allowance to this. So I'm just going to use my tape and measure exactly 1/2 inch right there. Remember that our band height has not been removed from this pattern, so don't forget that. So I'm just going to use a straight line to connect those points together. So this is our band height, 2.5 inches. This is totally up to you, by the way. So having sorted that out, we'll just go ahead with the rest of the pattern, just confirming to make sure I have what I need. If this video has been helpful to you guys, please subscribe to my channel. And please make sure you turn on the notification bell to get alerted whenever I have new tutorials. I post new content every week and you really don't want to miss out on any of the goodies. Tell your friends to tell theirs that they should come on board. Subscribe, like, share and comment. And if you want to request for any video specially, you can leave a comment in the comment section and I might just choose your video and do the tutorial. So I'm just going ahead to make sure you got what I was saying earlier, that you would need to remove your band height and gather the rest to match up with your band. So here I measured 9 inches. It's totally up to you. The more you have, the more your sleeve, the bigger your sleeve actually. So here I'm just going to cut out the band height from this pattern. We won't be needing this at all. And I'll go ahead to cut the rest of the fabric. So please don't forget to add 1/2 inch at this point so that we can join that, use it in joining it to our band. So this is what we have so far. I'll just go ahead to cut out my fabric, which I already did. So I went ahead to use Estee on this as well. So just opening it up to make sure that I have what I need. I like to measure and remeasure. I mean, I love it. Okay, so this is what we have so far. So the first thing we want to do is to gather this part to match our 10 inches. So let's go ahead and do this, and we're going to do that part as well. So I'll show you briefly how I did it. So you want to open up your band after you already gathered the lower part, and you just want to attach both pieces like so, using the 1/2 inch sewing allowance that we already added to both the band and the lower part of this sleeve. So what I have on the top part is exactly 10 inches. So I'm just pulling the gathers to make sure I have them all evened out, and I'm just going to run a stitch line until the very end of this fabric. So now that I've gotten that sorted, I'll just go ahead and show you the next step. So you would want to fold this in like so, using our 1/2 inch sewing allowance, and I'm just going to place it on top like so. I'm securing this with pins so that it will be easier for me to sew down. So you might want to do this as well. It makes the process a whole lot easier. So make sure the other side of this band is not folded in. That's why you always see me pulling it. So I'm just trying to make sure that nothing is stuck behind. So using my 1/2 inch, I'm just using my pins to secure them safely, and I'm just going to run a stitch on that. At this point, you may want to use a matching thread, a red thread or whatever color you're working with, but I like to sew inside the ditch. It's called sewing the ditch. So whatever thread I use at this moment, it may not even show. So at this point, you want to fold it in and mark exactly 1 inch, and we're going to run a line across and insert our elastic. So now we're done with it, and we're just going to attach our sleeves, and we have actually come to the end of this tutorial. I hope you had fun watching this tutorial, guys. Please come back for more. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. So this is what the finished look looks like. Oh, I'm feeling so happy. I hope you do yours, and please share the finished look with me. See you in my next tutorial. Bye.